Hello YouTubers. Here I'm putting up a very common interview question for electronics and communication as well as um, E and I engineers as well, or any other branch of trade in which electronics is involved. Okay, whoever learns communication engineering or signals and systems, this question can be a very common one in vivas as well as technical job interviews as well. So most of students confuse. Most of them do not know the answer, or even if they know the answer, it is not the perfect one. So this is my um, small attempt um, to educate those people. Okay, so the question I am reading it: justify the statement. Unlike the operations of sampling and coding, quantization is irreversible. Justify the statement. Unlike the operations of sampling and coding, quantization is irreversible. That means loss of information happens only in quantization. They have asked to justify the statement. So this statement, if you analyze, they are making two bold statements. Number one is that in the case of sampling as well as coding, during the process of sampling as well as coding, no information is lost. That is statement number one. And number two, that subpart of this statement, or number two statement, is quantization is irreversible, or loss of information happens in quantization. Now, to explain this phenomenon, we should know the three meaning of the three terms: sampling, coding, and quantization in depth. Well, sampling means what? There is a signal, analog signal. Okay, this is an analog signal, and you take samples. For instance, this point I took, this point I took, this point I took. Of course, I can take more close and close samples like this. Also, I can take this. Also, I can take. Okay, but in a regular interval. It is not like after 1 and 2 seconds you take their average in 5 seconds. No, it should be of regular intervals. Delta t should be same everywhere. Okay, so you kept on taking samples on and on and on till a period of time. So you got certain values: sample 1, sample 2, sample 3 is equal to 1.134, next is 1.137, next is 1.122, like that you got. Now the question is that there is a problem. I have a problem here, because you see we are losing information here. We do not know what is the information in between this sample and that sample, and this will happen no matter however thicker lines you draw, or however close lines you make. Still I can take a zoom in and take a point out and tell that, oh, you don't have the value at this point. So in that case, be that as it may, how we can tell that in sampling there is no information lost? That was question number one, problem number one. Now problem number two is coding. In coding there is no information lost. Well, coding is a process which comes after quantization. So the things comes like this: sampling first happens. Sampling first happens, then what happens? Quantization happens, and after that coding happens. So coding is the third step. Now before that we should explain why information is lost in quantization. Okay, information is lost in quantization and not in sampling. Well, what do you mean by quantization? Quantization means that you are, suppose this is the signal, then you are dividing it into a lot of quantum states, and assigning the names 001, 010, 011, 100, 101, like that, and giving names for each of them. Okay, so that being the case, of course, it is common sense that of course we will, I mean, if you quantize it, the signal will look like something like this. Okay, something like that, it did look like that, so it cannot be reconstructed. That is common sense. Okay, that's fine. So that makes sense, but how you are going to explain that no signal is lost during sampling, because it looks like in between, see, in between values of this thing, they lost. I mean, you do not know what is the value between this step and that step. The same thing will work out here also. You really do not know what is the value of the signal between this point and that point. You know this point and that point, but you do not really know what is the value between this point and this point. So if, isn't it double standards? Like this guy, in this guy there is information lost, but in here information is not lost. How can? In here information is not lost. How can that happen? So therein comes something called Nyquist rule. So Nyquist is a gentleman who told that, okay, if you keep the points very, very close to each other, now how much close he explains later, so that the frequency of this kind of samples is 2 times the maximum frequency component of this guy, or the bandwidth of the whole signal. If you space your samples in such a gap, then you are going to completely reconstruct the signal. Now that makes sense in some way, because see, my doubt was, I have this particular sample and that particular sample. If I zoom in, okay, I zoomed this in and I got this particular sample and that particular sample. My doubt was, during reconstruction, what if I draw like that? During reconstruction, what happens? Just joining of points, that's it, right? What if the signal is like this, or what if the signal is like that? How you are going to distinguish these three points? The answer to this thing is, the sampling frequency is a function of bandwidth. Now if the signal is like this, then or like this, then the frequency component of this jerk, this depression, will be automatically higher, and that will demand more closer spacing between the points. I will tell you again. The contradiction or the problem that we faced in a Nyquist criteria, or the sampling problem, is that, I mean, while sampling, the information is not lost. How we are going to explain this? The thing is that, suppose we have got, suppose this is the analog signal and these are the two samples, okay, and I zoomed this in, and this is the zoomed version. So if you deconstruct the whole thing, you can reconstruct it using, like, joining the points like that, or that, or that, or even that, or that. Now which one you are going to choose? The answer to this thing is, you will choose only that line whose bandwidth or whose frequency component will not exceed the frequency component with which you found the Nyquist rate. If this is going to be the line, then normally the bandwidth will also increase. So bandwidth also increase means 2 times bandwidth increased. So then you have to take one more value here. So that thing is conserved. Okay, so naturally you have to choose only that line which allows only that much bandwidth, or otherwise you have to make it more close and close. So it is like a, it is like a lock. You cannot, I mean, that sounds more convincing. So thus the the sampling, I mean, unlike operations of sampling, I did it properly. Now, what do you mean by quantization? In the case of quantization, the information is permanently lost. Okay, information is permanently lost. So, and coding is I mean, quantization is this thing, and coding is assignment of 001 001 0 010 011, like that. So in the case of coding, why should the information get lost? Because information is lost only in quantization. Coding is just the name giving ceremony, the christening ceremony of a quantized signal. Okay, and the information is lost in quantization. Okay, so I think that is the explanation. Now I have a problem here also. See, the thing is that which one is more, I mean, going by the argument that information is not lost, information is lost during quantization, I have a problem here. Which films are more of a better clarity, the 4K or the 8K films that you watch now in today's world, or the videos that our forefathers used to record in a magnetic tape? Which one is more clear? Of course the 4K 8K videos are much superior when compared to the older magnetic tape recorded ones. Why? If information had been lost in making a digital signal, a quantized digital signal, then it should have an inferior quality of picture. Then why the older analog recording ones, the older magnetic tape ones or gramophone ones has got more quality, has got lesser inferior quality than the modern ones? Now that is a very good question. The answer to that question is that I mean, there is a minimum limit beyond which we cannot see or we cannot hear. For instance, 1/16th of a second. If two images are passed in front of us with a time gap of less than 1/16th of a second, we cannot identify that these two images are different, and that is exactly the case of filmmaking in the older days. The films were like images, but they was made to move in front of us at a very high speed, which is whose time period is less than 1/16th of a second. So there is no point, I mean, suppose the quantization limit is greater than the perceivable limit of our eye or ear, then there is no difference. I mean, hardly there is any difference because of the loss of information because of coding or quantization. See, quantization, the information is lost, but if that lost information is not even perceivable by our human eye or ear, then what is wrong? No harm, no foul. So that's why we don't feel any problem while watching a 4K or a 1080p video, because our eyes are not capable of perceiving those kind of small defects. Okay, I think that explains. I think I explained all the terms. Like, unlike the operations of sampling, so sampling is a totally reversible process only if you follow Nyquist criteria. It should be Nyquist sampling. Okay, and coding is just a name giving ceremony, then nothing else. Quantization is the place where you lose information, but if that information is not even perceivable by a human eye or ear, then no problem in quantizing. So, and that's why, and that's how the statement is fully correct. Okay, thank you everyone.